5 more reasons you might not want to consider Klamath Falls. Let's get into it. One of the videos that gets me the most feedback and follow-up questions is my 5 reasons that you don't want to consider Klamath Falls video. So let's get into 5 more reasons that you might not want to consider Klamath Falls, and one is our growing season. This is a high desert climate, which we do have 4 seasons, but in the summertime it'll get up into the 90s, and at night it is not unusual for it to go down into the 50s, sometimes in the 40s. We've had snow on the 4th of July in Klamath Falls, so you have to be pretty choosy when you're making your plant selection, because if you have something that's going to take 100 days or more to harvest, you're probably not going to get much from that plant. A lot of the local garden centers will tell you 90 days. Look for plants that mature in 90 days, that they are early producers because of our short growing season. And another thing that is very perplexing to people that are not familiar with the high desert climate is that there's a lot of stuff that just does not do well here that does well in other places. They come from other areas, and they want to have the plants that they love and they're familiar with, and they try to make it work here, and there's a lot of stuff that just does not thrive. And it's a very unusual set of growing circumstances we have here. First, the 4 seasons, and then the crazy temperature swings that we have here. And one thing that has been tough for me has been corn. My gosh, because I'm from Pennsylvania, and corn grows everywhere out there, and I've tried a few times here, and I know some people have found some varieties that do well here, but I haven't landed on that yet. And another thing that just happened to me recently is some folks will see that there's plants in the garden centers, or especially the big chain ones, and they will go out and plant, and I'm like, no, you can't. We're gonna have a lot more frost. This nice weather where it's in the 60s and the lows are not down into the frost area, that's fake. It's gonna frost a few more times, then we're gonna probably have some really hard frost coming up, and all that stuff that you think you're gonna be able to plant will probably die, and you're going to end up planting it again. And I think that's why the home centers do that. They're like, oh, we'll get these people to buy a couple rounds of plants and see how that goes. The reason you might not want to consider Klamath Falls is that lake is not recreational. I didn't realize until I had some people come up from California that wanted lakefront property. They saw how cheap our lakefront property was, and they were like, yeah, we're going to move up here and we're going to buy a waterfront home and da-da-da-da. I'm like, you don't boat on that and ski and on that, because they were really into the water sports and jet skis, and I'm like, that most of this lake isn't recreational, right? It's not good water to play in. And they were like, what do you mean? And they wanted to go to Crater Lake and go water skiing and stuff. I'm like, no, you don't water ski on Crater Lake. I mean, it's just not something you can't. So anyways, Klamath Lake is not a good recreational lake. There is some fishing out there. There are some people that do some boating in the summertime. There is Pelican Marina, and there's some people that go out and sail and all the things. And there's some areas of the lake that aren't quite as murky and icky as others. But our algae blooms in the summertime are legendary, where you can't get in the water. And so the Klamath Lake is not a good recreational lake. And of course, we've talked about in other videos about the midges. From, I guess, June, July, August, the midges are terrible out on the lake. A few years, well, I shouldn't say a few years ago, many years ago, there was a company that bought a big paddle boat, and they were doing ice cream socials and dinner cruises and stuff like that on the paddle boat. And that only lasted 1 season because people didn't want to go out and have the midges fly into their ice cream and in their food and stuff. And then so that, Klamath Lake is not a good recreational lake. So if you're really into like the water sports thing, and you think that you're going to have a house with a dock and all the things, there are some places. Rocky Point is great. Rocky Point, the water is much better over in Rocky Point, and there's some areas that the water is better than others, but the majority of Klamath Lake is not a good recreational lake. Another reason you might not want to consider Klamath Falls is the air quality in the summer. The wildfire seasons have been crazy, and there's times where you can't go outside. The air quality is like 7 million. It's like air particles per whatever they measure it by, and they recommend you don't go out, and you run in air purifiers in the house. And there's sites that talk about the air quality in Klamath Falls like this happens all the time, like our air quality is constantly bad. That's not true. But in the summertime, if the wildfires are going around the area, and sometimes, like the one year, the smoke was blowing in from a fire in Canada that was blowing down here, and so the air quality in the summertime can be a challenge. Another reason you might not want to consider Klamath Falls is it is a harsh, high desert climate. Last winter, it was crazy. A lot of people lost trees because we had all this wet, heavy snow, and it just kept coming and it kept coming. And there was a lot of areas that lost power for a while. It was below zero. It was bitterly cold, and that crazy winter storm lasted for quite a while. But this winter, nothing. And in the summer, there's crazy temperature swings. We can have those out of nowhere. All of a sudden, a dark cloud will come over, and we'll have like a flash of thunderstorm for about 15-20 minutes, and then the sun comes back out. So it is a crazy weather conditions thing that a lot of people from other areas have some trouble adjusting to. I want to consider Klamath Falls is the ongoing water battle between the water users and the different players, and how this all interacts. And last winter it was fine because we had so much snow, and then there was water available for the farmers throughout the growing season. This year it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and this thing makes news all the time, and there's factions and groups that are like trading barbs at each other. Everybody's suing each other, and it's really exhausting. And it's unfortunate because so much of Klamath's economy is tied to the water issue and agriculture and things like that. So this has been going on since 2001, this ongoing battle over water usage and who gets what and who has rights to what, and it's sort of exhausting at times, and it's a political hot potato, and it doesn't look like that there's any end in sight for that anytime soon. So as much as I love Klamath Falls, and as much as I think that you should consider Klamath Falls, there's 5 more reasons that you might not want to consider Klamath Falls. Thanks for joining me.